The salt-laced air at Bondi, usually alive with laughter, now hangs heavy with silence. On this December 17th, the Bondi Pavilion is transformed into a sanctuary of sorrow as thousands gather to mourn an unimaginable loss. A sea of flowers carpets the ground, vibrant against the somber faces of mourners. Among the tributes, a hand-drawn picture of Matilda, just 10 years old, stands out, a symbol of innocence lost. She is one of 15 victims of the deadliest terrorist attack in Australia's history, a tragedy that shattered families and a nation. Survivors, including 2 police officers who ran toward danger, now fight for their lives and carry scars that will never fade. The pain here is palpable, but so is the unity. Strangers comforting each other, bound by shared grief. This is not just Sydney's tragedy, it is Australia's, shaking the foundations of our peaceful society. The Bondi Memorial is more than a place to mourn. It is a symbol of our resolve not to let hate win. Among the flowers and tears, a quiet promise echoes: we will remember, and we will demand a safer, united future. Into this landscape of grief stepped Josh Frydenberg, not just as a politician, but as a mourner and a voice for the community. His presence was both comfort and challenge, his grief raw, his anger unmistakable. Frydenberg's speech cut through the silence, demanding answers and accountability from the nation's leaders. He accused the government of failing to protect Australians, calling the tragedy a predictable result of unchecked hate. He cited ignored warning signs, celebrations after the October 7th Hamas attack, escalating antisemitism, and attacks on Jewish businesses and synagogues. Frydenberg condemned the defense of extremist rhetoric in universities and the downplaying of anti-Semitic threats by authorities. He criticized Foreign Minister Penny Wong for her response to the crisis, calling it a moral failure. For Frydenberg, these were not just political missteps, they were failures that allowed extremism to flourish. His message was clear. This tragedy was preventable and leadership must take responsibility. The Bondi massacre was not a random act, it was the result of years of growing radicalization within Australia. Frydenberg rejected claims that religion played no role, pointing to the ISIS flag found in the attacker's car. The ideology that fueled the attack was homegrown, nurtured in local communities and spread by hate preachers. One shooter, born in Australia and on an ASIO watch list since 2019, trained with extremists in Bankstown, a chilling sign of local radicalization. Antisemitism became a barometer for a deeper sickness. Doxing, boycotts, and firebombings targeted the Jewish community. These were not isolated incidents, but part of a pattern of escalating aggression. The failure to confront hate allowed extremists to feel emboldened and left targeted communities unprotected. When hate speech is dismissed and support for terror is excused as free speech, the fabric of our society unravels. The slow burn of hatred was ignored for too long, until it erupted at Bondi. The lesson is clear: hate, left unchecked, will always find a home. The Bondi tragedy is a story of systemic failure, warnings ignored, opportunities missed. ASIO's public alerts about rising anti-Semitism and the link between words and violence went unheeded. Despite clear threats, intelligence and security systems failed to prevent the attack. Political leaders responded with weak, delayed condemnations, creating a vacuum for extremism to grow. Legal loopholes allowed hate-filled protests and public intimidation, while laws lagged behind the reality of modern extremism. State leaders found themselves powerless to stop displays of hate, as courts prioritized protest rights over public safety. The system failed to connect the dots. Watch lists, public hate, and violent acts were seen as isolated, not as a pattern. This was a collective failure of imagination, a refusal to believe such horror could happen here. The result, a tragedy that could have been prevented had the threat been taken seriously. Bondi stands as a devastating lesson in the cost of inaction. Grief and anger are not enough. Action is essential. Frydenberg outlined a plan to ban hate preachers, especially those celebrating violence, and shut down extremist organizations like Hizb ut-Tahrir. He called for strict prosecution of anyone inciting violence, making clear that hate speech has no place in Australia. The system that allowed radicalization must be overhauled, starting with a royal commission into the massacre and its causes. Border security must be strengthened, with rigorous screening and the power to deport those who promote extremism. The government must finally act on the Gillian Siegel report on anti-Semitism and give state leaders authority to ban hate protests. These are not minor tweaks. They are fundamental reforms to restore safety and accountability. The message: Australia's primary duty is to protect its people, without compromise. The time for half measures is over. Decisive action is the only answer. Only then can we ensure such a tragedy is never repeated. Amid the horror at Bondi, acts of courage shone through the darkness. Ordinary people risked their lives to confront the attackers, saving others in the chaos. Police officers ran toward danger, neutralizing the threat and suffering life-changing injuries. Their bravery is a debt the nation can never fully repay. Among the heroes was Ahmed, a Muslim man who helped victims, defying the hate that sought to divide. His actions, and those of others, showed the true spirit of Australia: unity in the face of terror. These stories of heroism are the foundation for rebuilding, proof that our shared humanity is stronger than hate. The attackers wanted division. Instead, they inspired solidarity and courage. In these heroes, we find hope and a path forward, together and without fear. Pastor Martin Niemöller's warning echoes today. First they came for the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. Frydenberg adapted this message, reminding Australians that hate never stops with one group. The ideology behind the Bondi attack targets not just Jews, but the very fabric of our free, diverse society. To ignore antisemitism is to risk the safety of all. The fire that consumes one house will spread to others. The Australian Jewish community has enriched our nation for generations. From Sir John Monash to Jessica Fox, an attack on them is an attack on all of us. The path forward demands resolve from leaders and courage from citizens. We must insist on strong measures to outlaw hate and protect our communities. But it is also up to each of us to speak out, to refuse to be bystanders. We must stand in solidarity, celebrating our differences as strengths. The memory of Matilda and the others lost at Bondi demands nothing less. In Australia, we must ensure there is always someone left to speak for everyone.